Ji-woo stood at the entrance of the Galactic Academy station, a small duffel bag hanging from her shoulder. The station was massive, bigger than anything she had ever seen on Earth. Silver walls stretched in every direction, and windows showed the dark space outside with thousands of stars. She took a deep breath and walked forward. The hallways were crowded with aliens. Tall ones, short ones, ones with scales, ones with feathers, ones that seemed to be made of crystal. They all moved with purpose, heading to their destinations. Ji-woo felt small among them. At 5 feet 4 inches, she was shorter than most beings here. But she kept her head up and followed the signs to the dormitory section. When she entered the common area, conversation stopped. Dozens of alien eyes turned to look at her. Ji-woo felt the weight of their stares, but didn't let it show on her face. She had dealt with worse back home in the mountains. A tall reptilian creature approached her. His scales were dark green, and he stood at least 7 feet tall. Sharp teeth showed when he smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Look what we have here," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "A human. They actually let one of you soft things into the academy." Other aliens gathered around, curious. Some whispered to each other. Ji-woo noticed their body language, the way they positioned themselves, the way they looked at her like she was something weak. "I'm Crix," the reptilian said, circling her slowly. "From Scar Prime. We have 3 times your gravity there. Our warriors train from birth." He leaned closer. "What makes you think you belong here? Flesh-wrapped prey." Ji-woo met his eyes but said nothing. She had learned long ago that words didn't matter as much as actions. Let them talk. Let them assume. She would show them when it mattered. An aquatic creature with blue skin and gills on her neck laughed. "Humans?" she said, her voice bubbling. "I heard about your species. No claws, no natural armor, no venom. What do you even have? Soft skin that tears easily?" "That's Fenital," another student whispered. "She's from the water world of Akaros. She thinks she's better than everyone." More aliens joined the crowd. They pointed at Ji-woo's hands, her lack of obvious weapons. One insect-like creature clicked its mandibles in what might have been laughter. "How did you even get accepted?" Crix asked. "Did they lower the standards for your species?" Ji-woo finally spoke, her voice calm and steady. "I passed the same tests as everyone else." "Sure you did," Fenital said with a smirk. "We'll see how long you last. I give you a week before you quit and go back to your soft little world." The crowd dispersed slowly, still throwing glances at Ji-woo. She made her way to her assigned room in Dorm Wing C. The room was small but functional. 3 beds, 3 storage lockers, and a shared bathroom. 2 of her roommates were already there. One was a bird-like creature with hollow bones and white feathers. The other was a slug-like being that moved slowly, leaving a wet trail behind. "I'm Lyra," the bird creature said, her voice high-pitched. "And this is Thombik." The slug creature made a gurgling sound that Ji-woo assumed was a greeting. "Ji-woo," she said, setting her bag on the empty bed. "So you're the human everyone's talking about," Lyra said, tilting her head. "They're saying humans are from a low-danger world. Is that true?" Ji-woo unpacked her things slowly. "Earth has its dangers, but nothing like real Deathworlds, right?" Lyra continued. "I mean, you don't have acid oceans or gravity storms or anything serious." Ji-woo pulled out a photo from her bag. It showed mountains covered in snow, a forest thick with trees, and a small village in the valley. "This is home," she said. "We have predators that can kill you in seconds, weather that can freeze you to death in minutes, plants that are poisonous if you touch them, diseases that can wipe out entire communities." Thombek made another gurgling sound, this one seeming surprised. "But your planet is listed as Class 7 in the Galactic database," Lyra said. "That's moderate danger at most." Ji-woo shrugged. Maybe the people who made that list never actually visited Earth. That night, Ji-woo lay in her bed, listening to the sounds of the station. The hum of the life support systems, the distant voices of other students, the occasional announcement over the speakers. She thought about her brother Taehyun, who had dropped her off before heading to his next cargo run. He had been proud of her, proud that she was representing Earth at the academy. Through the thin walls, she could hear other students talking. Did you see the human? So small and weak-looking. I bet she doesn't make it past the first physical test. Why did they even accept her kind? Humans don't have anything special. I heard someone started a betting pool on how many days before she quits. Ji-woo closed her eyes. Let them bet. Let them laugh. She had grown up in the Korean mountains where winters were brutal and summers were harsh. She had learned to hunt, to track, to survive with minimal resources. Her grandmother had taught her that strength wasn't always about size or claws or armor. Sometimes strength was about refusing to give up when everything told you to quit. The next morning, Ji-woo woke early. She dressed in her training uniform and made her way to the cafeteria. The food was strange, designed to be nutritious for dozens of different species. She picked items that looked closest to what she knew and sat at an empty table. Crix walked past with his group of friends. Still here, human? I'm surprised. Thought you'd have run home crying already. Ji-woo took a bite of her food and said nothing. An instructor entered the cafeteria, a massive bear-like creature that stood nearly 10 feet tall. His fur was gray and his eyes were sharp. Everyone quieted down immediately. I am Instructor Garnath, he announced, his voice booming. In 1 hour, all first-year students will report to Training Hall 7 for physical assessment. Do not be late. He left, and the cafeteria erupted in nervous chatter. Physical assessment on the first real day meant they would be tested, measured, and ranked. For many students, it was their first chance to prove themselves. For Ji-woo, it was her first chance to show these aliens that they had made a mistake in underestimating her. She finished her breakfast slowly, watching the other students. Some looked confident, flexing their natural weapons and talking loudly about their capabilities. Others looked nervous, fidgeting with their food. Ji-woo felt calm. Her heartbeat was steady. Her mind was clear. Back home, her grandmother had told her a story about a small mountain cat that survived by being smarter and tougher than the bigger predators. Size doesn't matter, her grandmother had said. What matters is your will to survive. Ji-woo stood up, placed her tray in the cleaning station, and headed to her room to prepare. In 1 hour, the academy would begin to learn what it meant to come from Earth. They would learn that humans didn't quit. They didn't break easily. And they definitely didn't run away from a challenge. She looked at herself in the mirror one last time before leaving. Small, yes. Lacking claws and armor, yes. But her eyes showed something. The other students hadn't seen yet. Determination. The kind of determination that only came from surviving on a world that constantly tested you. The academy was about to discover what Deathworld children were really made of. Training Hall 7 was enormous. The ceiling stretched high above, and various equipment lined the walls. Obstacle courses, climbing walls, running tracks, and machines Ji-woo didn't recognize. About 200 students gathered in the center, organized by species groups. Ji-woo stood with the small human contingent, only 12 of them total. Instructor Garnath stood on a raised platform, his massive form commanding attention. Today we test your limits, he announced. The galaxy needs warriors who can endure, who can push beyond comfort, who can survive when others fall. The first test was simple. A 50-kilometer run on the station's gravity ring. The gravity was set to 1.2, higher than Earth's standard gravity. For most species in the galaxy, This was considered extremely high. Their worlds had lower gravity, and their bodies weren't built for it. Begin. Doreenith's voice echoed through the hall. The students started running. Ji-woo fell into an easy pace, her breathing steady. Around her, many aliens struggled immediately. Their legs shook under the increased weight. Some fell behind within the first kilometer. Crix ran ahead of the pack, his powerful reptilian legs carrying him forward. But Ji-woo noticed his form was already showing strain. He was fighting the gravity instead of working with it. By kilometer 10, half the students had dropped out, sitting on the sides of the track and panting heavily. Fenethil, the aquatic student, had quit at kilometer 5. Her species wasn't designed for sustained land movement, especially not under high gravity. Ji-woo kept her steady pace. Her legs felt strong. This gravity was only slightly higher than home, and she had spent her childhood running through mountain trails carrying supplies. This was easier than hauling water containers up steep paths in winter. By kilometer 30, only 50 students remained running. Crix had slowed significantly, his breath coming in harsh gasps. His legs trembled with each step. Pride kept him moving, but his body was failing. Ji-woo passed him at kilometer 40. She didn't look at him, didn't say anything. She just maintained her pace, her mind focused on the rhythm of her steps. When she crossed the 50-kilometer mark, she was in the top 20 finishers. She wasn't even breathing particularly hard. Instructor Doreenith watched her cross the line and made a note on his datapad, his expression thoughtful. Crix finished 10 minutes later, collapsing onto the ground. He stared at Ji-woo with confusion and something that might have been respect, though he quickly looked away. 3 days later came the environmental adaptation test. Students were placed in chambers that cycled through extreme conditions. The temperature dropped to -20 degrees, then shot up to 50 degrees. The air pressure changed. Toxic gases were introduced, requiring respirators. Most alien species needed full environmental suits. Their bodies couldn't handle the rapid changes. Some passed out from the stress. Others activated their emergency beacons to be pulled from the test. Ji-woo sat in her chamber wearing only her standard uniform and a basic respirator. The cold made her shiver, but she had experienced worse winters in the mountains. The heat made her sweat, but summer training runs had been similar. Her body adjusted, regulated, adapted. In the observation room, instructors watched the monitors with interest. The human's vital signs are remarkably stable, one instructor noted. She should be in distress by now. Earth's environmental data shows extreme temperature variations, another replied. Perhaps their species evolved to handle this. When the test ended, Ji-woo walked out of her chamber looking tired but functional. Crix emerged from his chamber wearing a full environmental suit, his scales pale from stress. He saw her and stopped. "How?" he asked, his voice weak. "How did you do that with just basic gear?" Ji-woo shrugged. "Earth has deserts that can cook you during the day and freeze you at night. You learn to deal with it." The combat drills started in the second week. Hand-to-hand fighting, the foundation of all military training. Ji-woo was paired with Torex, a mammalian alien with thick fur and natural claws. He was twice her size and looked confident. "Try not to hurt her too badly," Fandel called from the sidelines. Humans break easily. The match began. Torex lunged forward, claws extended. Ji-woo stepped aside, using his momentum against him. She grabbed his arm, twisted, and applied pressure to his elbow joint. Torex yelped in surprise and pain, dropping to one knee. Before he could recover, Ji-woo swept his legs and he crashed onto the mat. She maintained the joint lock, controlling him completely. "Match," the instructor called. "Winner, Ji-woo." The training hall fell silent. Torex stood slowly, rubbing his arm and looking at Ji-woo with new eyes. The other students whispered among themselves. "Lucky hit," Crick said loudly. She caught him off guard. But over the next week, Ji-woo won 6 more matches. Her technique was different from what the aliens knew. She used leverage, found weak points, applied pressure to joints and nerve clusters. She fought like someone who had learned that strength wasn't enough. You needed strategy and precision. The instructors began paying more attention to the human students. They moved differently in combat. They were aggressive in ways that seemed almost reckless. They closed distance when other species backed away. They absorbed hits that should have stopped them and kept fighting. During a field rations exercise, Instructor Velmora, an insectoid being with multiple arms, distributed food packets to the students. One packet contained a mild paralytic toxin, clearly marked with warning symbols. Some of these rations contain substances that can be harmful to certain species, Velmora explained. Always check the labels before consuming. Ji-woo picked up the marked packet, read the label, and opened it anyway. She took a bite of the spicy, dark paste inside. Velmora's compound eyes widened. "Cadet Ji-woo, that contains neurotoxin alkaloids." Ji-woo swallowed and shrugged. "It tastes like the hot peppers my grandmother grows. A little spicy, but it's fine." "But the toxin, humans build tolerance to toxins," Ji-woo explained calmly. "We eat things that would poison most species for fun. We call them spices. They make food taste better." The nearby students backed away slightly, looking at Ji-woo like she was insane. What kind of species intentionally consumed poison for enjoyment? Another human student, Yuna, who had arrived from a coastal region of Earth, laughed. "You should see what we put in our seafood back home," she said. "Raw fish, fermented vegetables, peppers that make you cry. Earth cuisine is basically training for chemical warfare." Instructor Velmora made several notes on her datapad, her antennae twitching with agitation. By the end of the 3rd week, the atmosphere at the academy had changed. The open mockery of human students had stopped. Now there were nervous glances, careful distance. The other students were beginning to understand that humans were different in ways they hadn't expected. Crix approached Ji-woo in the cafeteria one evening. He didn't sit, just stood near her table awkwardly. "Your world," he said quietly. "Earth, what's it really like?" Ji-woo looked up at him. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine curiosity and maybe a little fear. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. "Mountains, oceans, forests, deserts. But it's also dangerous. We have animals that can kill us easily. Weather that can turn deadly in minutes. Diseases we're constantly fighting. Natural disasters that can destroy entire cities. We don't have fixed scales or claws or armor. We're soft and weak compared to most predators on our world." "Then how do you survive?" Crix asked. Ji-woo smiled slightly. "We adapt. We learn. We make tools. We work together. And we never ever give up. Because on Earth, giving up means death. So we're raised from childhood to keep going no matter what. Pain, exhaustion, fear, we push through it all. It's just what we do." Crix was quiet for a moment. "I called you prey," he said, his voice carrying shame. "You did," Ji-woo agreed. "I was wrong." He looked down at his clawed hands. "You're not prey. I don't know what you are, but you're not prey." After he left, Yuna sat down next to Ji-woo. "They're starting to get it," she said. "Get what?" "That Earth made us tough in ways they don't understand. They look at our soft skin and think we're weak. They don't realize that soft skin is a trade-off for other advantages. Endurance, adaptability, throwing accuracy, sweat cooling, and mental toughness they can't measure in a test." Ji-woo nodded. The Academy was beginning to learn what humanity brought to the galaxy. It wasn't natural weapons or armor. It was something harder to quantify, but far more valuable. It was the ability to face impossible odds and refuse to quit. The ability to adapt to any environment. The ability to take damage and keep moving forward. The galaxy had spent thousands of years assuming that physical power determined worth. Earth was about to teach them a different lesson. Sometimes, the most dangerous warriors were the ones who looked the weakest but refused to break. The transport ship descended toward the moon's surface, carrying nervous students toward their biggest test yet. The gauntlet was legendary at the Academy. 2 weeks of pure survival in a hostile environment. No support, no second chances. Only an emergency beacon for life-threatening situations, but using it meant automatic failure. Ji Woo looked out the window at the barren landscape below. Rocky terrain stretched endlessly, with twisted vegetation struggling to grow in the harsh conditions. The gravity here was 1.4, even higher than the training station. The instructors had warned them about acidic rain, carnivorous plants, and predators that hunted in packs. Her team assembled in the cargo bay. Crick stood tall, but his earlier arrogance was gone. Lyra, the bird-like student, flexed her wings nervously. Thombik, the slug creature, left wet trails as he moved slowly around. Xananir, a crystalline being that barely moved, reflected light from his geometric body. And Minji, another human student, checked their equipment carefully. 200 kilometers to the extraction point, the pilot announced. You have your supplies. Good luck. The team dropped onto the rocky surface, and the ship lifted away immediately. They were alone. Crick stepped forward, trying to take command. We should head north. The terrain looks easier there. Minji studied her datapad, showing the topographic map. North has 3 river crossings. The water here is acidic. We'd need to build bridges or find shallow points. That wastes time. I'm the team leader, Crick insisted. We go north. Ji Woo said nothing, just adjusted her pack and started walking east. Minji followed her without hesitation. Hey, Crick called. I said north. Then go north. Ji Woo replied without stopping. We're going the faster route. Crick stood torn between pride and pragmatism. Finally, he cursed and followed the 2 humans. The rest of the team came along. By the second day, dark clouds gathered overhead. The acidic rain started as a light drizzle, then became a downpour. Most of the team panicked, frantically trying to set up elaborate shelters with their limited supplies. Ji Woo and Minji simply found a cave entrance, cleared it of debris, and built a small fire near the entrance. They used large leaves from nearby plants to create basic rain covers. Get in here, Ji Woo called to the others. Cricks, who had spent 30 minutes trying to construct a complicated tent system, gave up and ran to the cave. His scales showed minor burn marks from the acid rain. Lyra flew in, her feathers singed. The others followed. Inside the dry cave, Crix looked at his burned scales and then at the 2 humans sitting comfortably by their fire. How did you know about the cave? He asked. We looked for it before the rain started, Minji said. Survival basics. Always secure shelter before you need it. The rain continued for 6 hours. By the time it stopped, Crix's elaborate tent equipment was destroyed by the acid. Half their supplies were damaged. Only what Ji Woo and Minji had protected remained intact. Food became a problem on the 4th day. The concentrated nutrition packets were running low. Most team members rationed carefully, eating minimal amounts and growing weaker. Ji Woo and Minji walked into the twisted forest near their camp and returned an hour later with plants and insects. What is that? Fenadil had asked earlier in training, but Lyra asked now, looking disgusted at the writhing insects in Minji's bag. Food, Ji Woo said simply. She started preparing them, cooking some over the fire and wrapping others in leaves. These are safe. similar to crickets and grasshoppers on Earth. High protein. You want us to eat bugs? Xana's crystalline voice sounded horrified. You can starve if you prefer, Minji said, taking a bite of a cooked insect. Tastes like nuts. Desperation eventually won. Lyra tried one and nearly gagged, but forced it down. Even Crix, swallowing his pride again, ate the offered food. His face showed disgust, but he didn't complain. On the sixth night, the predators came. 6 wolf-sized creatures with razor-sharp carapaces and glowing eyes surrounded the camp. Their growls echoed through the darkness. Lyra screamed, her wing injured from an earlier fall. Crix froze, his combat training abandoned in the face of real danger. Xananer couldn't move fast enough to defend himself. Ji-Woo reacted instantly. She grabbed a burning branch from their fire and threw it at the nearest predator. The creature yelped and backed away. She picked up rocks and hurled them with frightening accuracy, each one hitting a predator's head or eyes. Then she did something that made Crix's blood run cold. She ran toward the largest predator, screaming and waving the torch. The predator, used to prey that fled, hesitated in confusion. Minji joined her, both humans charging the pack with weapons and noise. The predators, faced with prey that attacked instead of running, broke and scattered into the darkness, thought the team sat in shocked silence after the attack. Thombeck made gurgling sounds of disbelief. Xananer's crystalline body reflected the firelight in trembling patterns. You ran at them, Crix said, his voice barely a whisper. They could have killed you. They could have killed all of us if we just sat here, Ji-Woo replied, tending to Lyra's injured wing. Sometimes you have to make predators think you're more dangerous than you really are. Confidence can be a weapon. Lyra's wing became infected by the 8th day. The medical supplies were nearly gone, and the antiseptic they had was insufficient. Fever set in. Lyra shivered despite the heat. Her breathing labored. Ji-Woo disappeared into the forest and returned with various plants. She crushed them together, mixing them with water to create a thick paste. What is that? Thombeck asked. Medicine, Ji-Woo said, applying the paste to Lyra's wound. These plants have antibacterial properties, similar to ones we use on Earth. How do you know it will work? Crix asked. I don't for certain, Ji-Woo admitted. But in my village, we're far from hospitals. We learn to use what nature provides. This is better than watching her die. The paste worked. By the next morning, Lyra's fever had broken. The infection was clearing. She looked at Ji-Woo with gratitude and wonder. On the 11th day, disaster struck. Crix, still trying to prove himself, attempted to climb a cliff to scout their route. He slipped and fell, landing hard on his left leg. The bone broke with an audible crack. Crix screamed in pain. The team gathered around him, looking at his twisted leg with horror. We need to use the beacon, Xananer said. He can't walk. We can't carry him. We fail, but at least he lives. Ji-Woo knelt beside Crix, examining the break. We're not using the beacon. He can't walk. Lyra protested. So we carry him. Are you insane? Crix gasped through his pain. The gravity here. You can barely carry yourselves. How can you carry me? Minji was already cutting branches, creating a makeshift stretcher. We've carried heavier things in higher gravity. You're not that big. They fashioned the stretcher, secured Crix to it, and started moving. The 1.4 gravity made every step brutal. Their muscles screamed. Their backs ached. Sweat poured down their faces. But Ji-Woo and Minji took turns carrying the front of the stretcher, bearing the most weight. When one tired, they switched. They didn't complain. They didn't stop. They just kept moving forward, one painful step at a time. Crix, lying on the stretcher, watched the 2 small humans carry him through impossible terrain under crushing gravity. He had called them weak. He had mocked them. And now they were saving his life at great cost to themselves. Why? He asked Ji-woo during one of their brief rest stops. Why not just leave me? Use the beacon and save yourselves. Ji-woo looked at him, her face exhausted but determined. Because that's not what soldiers do. We don't leave people behind. My grandmother told me that strength isn't about what you can do for yourself. It's about what you can do for others when it's hard. They reached the extraction point on the 14th day, 3 hours before the deadline. They were the third team to arrive, ahead of 7 other teams. The instructors waited at the landing zone, recording their arrival. Instructor Garaneth approached as they set the stretcher down. He looked at the exhausted team, at Crix's broken leg, at the 2 humans who had carried him across 200 kilometers of Deathworld terrain. Explain what happened, he commanded. Crix spoke up, his voice strong despite his pain. I fell, broke my leg. They carried me. For 3 days, they carried me. The humans. They refused to quit, refused to leave me. I would have died without them. Garaneth nodded slowly, making notes. Other instructors gathered, listening to the report with interest. That night, in the medical tent after his leg was set and splinted, Crix lay awake thinking. He had come to the academy believing that physical power was everything, that his species' natural advantages made him superior. But he had been wrong. True strength, he was learning, wasn't about claws or scales or size. It was about the will to keep going when everything hurt. The determination to help others, even when it cost you. The refusal to accept defeat no matter how impossible things seemed. And that strength came naturally to humans. Not because they were physically superior, but because they came from a world that taught them these lessons every single day. Earth didn't let you be weak. Earth didn't accept excuses. Earth forged its children in constant danger and impossible challenges, until giving up simply wasn't an option anymore. The galaxy was going to learn this lesson, and Crix suspected it would change everything. The 4th month at the Academy brought the Coalition Trial, an event broadcast across dozens of worlds. Representatives from military organizations throughout the galaxy watched as the Academy's best students competed. For the cadets, it was a chance to prove themselves and earn placement in elite units. For Ji-woo and her fellow humans, it was a chance to show the galaxy what Earth's children could do. Team Terra stood in the preparation room, checking their equipment. Ji-woo adjusted her gear while Yuna stretched her muscles. Hyan, a tactical specialist from Earth's urban combat zones, studied the competition bracket on his datapad. We're up against Team Razor first, Hyan said. 3 elite reptilian warriors. They've won the Academy tournament twice before. Great, Yuna muttered. No pressure. Ji-woo smiled slightly. They'll underestimate us. Everyone does. The first event was zero-gravity combat. The arena was a massive sphere filled with obstacles and floating platforms. Teams of 3 fought to disable their opponents' beacon points while defending their own. Team Terra entered to scattered applause and some laughter. They were small compared to most competitors. Team Razor entered to cheers, their scales gleaming under the arena lights, their natural weapons on full display. The buzzer sounded. Team Razor launched themselves confidently through the zero-gravity environment, using their tails for balance and their claws to grip surfaces. They moved like they owned the space. But humans had advantages in zero gravity that surprised everyone. Ji-woo pushed off a platform with perfect precision, her body spinning in a controlled rotation. She grabbed an obstacle and redirected her momentum, flying past a Razor member and striking their beacon point before they could react. Yuna and Hyan moved in coordination, using the 3-dimensional space in ways the reptilians hadn't expected. While Team Razor fought like they were on the ground, trying to use power and direct attacks, Team Terra moved like water, flowing around obstacles and striking from unexpected angles. How are they doing that? One commentator asked, broadcasting to millions of viewers. Humans don't have natural advantages in zero gravity. No tails for balance, no extra limbs. Look at their eyes, another commentator observed. They're tracking everything. Every movement, every angle. It's like they're predicting momentum before it happens. Hyan explained it simply over the team channel. We're persistence hunters. Our brains evolved to track moving prey, calculate trajectories, predict where something will be. In zero-G, that means we know where you're going before you do. Team Terra won in 12 minutes. Team Razor floated in stunned disbelief, their beacon points disabled. Their confidence shattered. The strategy simulation was next. Teams face complex military scenarios in holographic environments, making decisions under pressure. Supply lines, terrain advantages, enemy movements, all factors had to be considered. Yuna led this event. Her mind worked through scenarios with frightening speed. But what shocked the judges was the team's approach to problems. Where other teams focused on overwhelming force and conventional tactics, Team Terra used unconventional solutions. In one scenario, facing a numerically superior force, they didn't engage in direct combat. Instead, they cut supply lines, used the terrain to create choke points, and waited. They turned the enemy's strength into a weakness, letting the larger force exhaust itself. They fight like every resource matters, one judge noted. Like they're always outnumbered and outgunned, so they have to be smarter. Because on Earth, they are always at a disadvantage. Another judge replied, reading information about Earth's ecosystem. Humans aren't the strongest or fastest. They survive by being clever and refusing to quit. Team Terra advanced through 4 rounds, defeating teams with far more combat experience. Their tactics were unpredictable, their decisions made with cold calculation, and their execution was flawless. The final event was the main attraction. The Gauntlet Redux, similar to their earlier survival training, but worse. 6 teams of 3 were dropped onto a hostile moon with 1.6 gravity, extreme weather, and active drone defenses programmed to attack. The first team to reach extraction won. The entire galaxy watched the live broadcast. In homes, bars, and military installations across dozens of worlds, beings gathered to watch the Academy's best compete. Team Terra landed hard, the gravity immediately pressing down on them. Around them, other teams struggled to move. One team's members collapsed immediately, unable to handle the gravity. They activated their emergency beacons within minutes. G-Wu, Yuna, and Hyan stood, adjusted to the weight, and started moving. They had trained in higher gravity for months. This was brutal, but manageable. 6 hours into the event, 2 teams ambushed Team Terra at a narrow canyon pass. They had coordinated their attack, planning to eliminate the humans early. The trap was well executed. Team Terra was pinned behind rocks with drones circling overhead. Their opponents called for them to surrender. Ji-Woo looked at her teammates. Thoughts? They expect us to retreat or wait for an opening, Hyan said. So we do the opposite. Yuna finished. Ji-Woo grabbed an improvised weapon, a broken piece of metal pipe. We go through them. What happened next shocked the viewers. Instead of retreating or defending, Team Terra charged directly at their attackers. Ji-Woo led the assault, moving with frightening aggression. She used the terrain, throwing rocks to disable drones, then closing the distance before the enemy could adjust. Her ferocity startled the ambushing teams. They had expected tactical withdrawal, not a direct assault. While they hesitated, Hyan and Yuna flanked from both sides. Within minutes, both ambushing teams had their beacon points disabled. They sat in the canyon, stunned, as Team Terra continued toward the extraction point. Did you see that? A commentator gasped. They attacked into an ambush. That shouldn't work. That violates basic tactical doctrine. Unless your species is crazy enough to make it work, another commentator replied. Look at the human stress indicators. They're elevated, but controlled. They turned fear into aggression. 18 hours into the event, most teams had stopped to rest. The gravity and constant movement were exhausting. But Team Terra kept moving. Their pace had slowed, but they never stopped. Humans are persistence predators, a xenobiologist explained to the broadcast audience. On Earth, they hunted by following prey for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They're literally evolved to not stop moving. 30 hours in, the competition came down to two teams. Team Terra and Team Apex, the Academy favorites. Team Apex consisted of 3 physically superior aliens, each over 7 feet tall, with natural advantages in speed and strength. It became a race. Team Apex was faster, their longer legs eating up distance. But they had to rest. They had to stop and recover. Team Terra didn't. They just kept moving, one painful step after another. Jiwoo's legs were bleeding from cuts and scrapes. Yuna's ankle was sprained, causing her to limp. Hyan could barely keep his eyes open from exhaustion. But they kept moving. Why aren't they stopping? A viewer asked in a watch party broadcast from a space station. Because they're human, someone answered. And humans don't know when to quit. The final stretch was pure agony. Team Apex had a lead, but their steps were faltering. Team Terra was behind, but their pace was steady. Cameras captured every moment, broadcasting to billions of viewers. Team Apex reached the extraction point first, crossing the line and collapsing in exhaustion. They had won. Team Terra arrived 3 minutes later. Jiwoo crossed the line and fell to her knees. Yuna limped across and sat down hard. Hyan barely made it before his legs gave out. They had lost. Second place. But the galaxy had seen something that couldn't be unseen. 3 small humans, battered and bleeding, who had refused to stop for 30 hours straight under crushing gravity in hostile conditions. They should have quit. Every biological indicator said they should have quit. But they hadn't. The award ceremony was broadcast live. Team Apex received first place to loud cheers. They deserved it. They had been faster and stronger. But when Team Terra was called for second place, something unexpected happened. The entire academy stood. Instructors, students, even the competition judges. They stood and applauded. Not polite applause, but genuine respect. Then Instructor Garnath stepped forward to present a special award, something that hadn't been given in 20 years. The Unbreakable Spirit Award. I have trained thousands of warriors from hundreds of species, Garnath said, his voice carrying through the arena and across the broadcast. I have seen strength in many forms. But these humans, he looked at Team Terra with something like reverence. They don't know when to quit. Because on their world, quitting means death. Earth forged them in constant danger, in never-ending challenges. They arrived here already harder than anything we could throw at them. We didn't make them warriors. Earth did. We just gave them direction. The applause grew louder. In homes across the galaxy, beings watched 3 exhausted humans receive their award. Small creatures from a world nobody had paid much attention to. Creatures without natural weapons or armor or obvious advantages, but creatures who refused to break. That night, military recruiters from a dozen organizations contacted the academy, asking about human students. The betting pools were closed. The mockery was gone. In its place was respect. The alarm pierced through the academy's corridors at 03:00 hours. Jiwoo woke instantly, her training kicking in before her mind fully cleared. Around her, other students stumbled from their beds, confused and frightened. All students report to Assembly Hall immediately, the speakers announced. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The Assembly Hall filled with nervous cadets within minutes. Instructors stood at the front, their expressions grim. Instructor Velmora stepped forward, her insectoid features sharp in the emergency lighting. A distress signal has been received from mining colony Theta 9, she announced. Raiders are attacking. The colony's defense grid is down. Civilian casualties are mounting. Coalition forces are 3 days away. We are the closest facility. Silence filled the hall. This was real. Not training, not simulation. Real people were dying. We need volunteers, Velmora continued. You are students, not soldiers. No one will think less of you for staying. But if you volunteer, understand that you may face real combat. You may be injured. You may die. The hall remained silent for a long moment. Then Ji-woo stood. Her movement was simple, quiet, but it echoed through the space. Yuna stood next to her. Then Hyan. Then Minji. One by one, students rose. Crick stood, looking at Ji-woo. Lyra stood despite her fear. More and more students chose to fight. In the end, 30 volunteered. 8 were human, less than a third of the volunteer force, but far more than their percentage of the student body. The transport ship carried them through space at maximum speed. The volunteers sat in silence, checking weapons and gear. Ji-woo noticed that several alien students' hands were shaking. Fear was natural. What mattered was what you did despite the fear. Why did you volunteer? Lyra asked quietly, sitting next to Ji-woo. You could have stayed safe. Ji-woo thought about her grandmother's village, about neighbors helping each other survive harsh winters, about the unspoken agreement that you protected your community. Because people need help, she said simply. That's reason enough. The colony was chaos when they arrived. Buildings were damaged, fires burned, and the sound of weapons fire echoed through the streets. Civilians huddled in a central shelter while raiders systematically looted and destroyed. The volunteer force was divided into defensive positions. Ji-woo's squad was assigned to protect the civilian shelter entrance. If raiders breached their position, hundreds would die. The first attack came within the hour. Raiders poured around the corner, heavily armed and battle-hardened. They had numbers and firepower. The volunteers had determination and desperation. Several alien students froze when the first shots rang out. The reality of combat was different from training. Ji-woo didn't freeze. She aimed, fired, and moved to new cover. Her mind was clear, processing information with cold efficiency. Suppressing fire on the left, Hyan shouted, coordinating the defense. Watch the rooftop! Yuna called out. The human students moved with practiced ease, their actions smooth despite the chaos. They had trained for this, but more than that, they carried something deeper. A fundamental understanding that when things got bad, you didn't panic. You just did what needed to be done. 12 hours into the defense, the situation was deteriorating. The raiders were probing their defenses, finding weak points. Ammunition was running low. Several volunteers were injured. Exhaustion was setting in. Most alien students were at their breaking point. Their bodies demanded rest. Their minds screamed for relief from the constant stress. But the human volunteers were still functional. Not because they weren't tired, but because they had learned to function through exhaustion. How are you still going? One crystalline student asked Ji-woo during a brief lull. You've been fighting for 12 hours straight. Adrenaline, Ji-woo replied, checking her weapon. Human bodies flood with it during danger. Keeps us alert, dulls pain, gives us energy. It's a survival mechanism. We can run on it for days if we have to. That sounds horrible. Ji-woo smiled grimly. It is. But it keeps you alive. At the 30-hour mark, the raiders launched their heaviest assault. They brought explosives, trying to collapse the shelter entrance. It was a desperate, final push to break through before coalition reinforcements arrived. The fighting became close quarters and brutal. Ji-woo took shrapnel to her shoulder, the pain white-hot and immediate. She staggered but didn't fall. Couldn't fall. Behind her were civilians who couldn't defend themselves. She raised her weapon with her good arm and kept firing. High-end jury-rigged explosives from the colony's mining equipment, setting traps that caught raiders by surprise. Yuna, despite a concussion from an earlier explosion, coordinated defensive positions with tactical precision. Every human volunteer was injured, but still fighting. Their determination inspired the alien students. If these small humans could keep fighting despite wounds and exhaustion, how could they quit? Crix, his scale scarred from previous battles, fought with renewed vigor. Lyra, terrified but brave, held her position. 40-8 hours after the defense began, coalition ships appeared in orbit. The raiders broke and fled. Their assault failed. The volunteers had held. Ji-woo collapsed once she saw the ships. Her body finally acknowledged the injuries, the exhaustion, the pain she had been pushing through. Medical teams swarmed the area, treating casualties and evacuating the wounded. She woke in the medical bay 12 hours later. Her shoulder was bandaged, and pain medication made everything feel distant. Crick sat in the bed next to her, his arm in a sling. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "During the final assault, when that raider had me pinned, you tackled him despite your injury." Ji-woo didn't remember that clearly. It was all a blur of action and reaction. "You would have done the same," she said. "I hope so," Crix replied. "But I know you did it without hesitation. That's the difference between us. You were already trained by the universe's harshest teacher before you ever came here." The award ceremony was held a week later. All 30 volunteers received commendations for valor. But the galaxy's attention was focused on the human students. News broadcasts showed footage of young humans holding defensive positions for 48 hours, fighting through injuries that should have disabled them. A reporter interviewed instructor Valmora outside the academy. "What makes humans so effective in combat?" Valmora's response was broadcast across dozens of worlds. "Earth," she said simply. "We studied their world after the colony defense. The data was disturbing. Earth has gravity higher than 70% of inhabited worlds. It has predators that can kill humans easily, diseases that wipe out populations, weather that swings from freezing to scorching, poisonous plants and animals everywhere, natural disasters that destroy cities. And humans have no natural weapons or armor. They are soft, vulnerable, and should not have survived. But they did survive," the reporter prompted. "They more than survived. They thrived. Because Earth forced them to develop other advantages. Endurance that lets them pursue prey for days. Sweat cooling that prevents overheating. Throwing accuracy that no other species matches. The ability to eat almost anything and build resistance to toxins. But most importantly, mental resilience that borders on insanity. They feel pain, fear, and exhaustion like any species. They just ignore it better than anyone else. So humans are dangerous?" Valmora considered the question carefully. "Not dangerous. Determined. There's a difference. Humans aren't naturally aggressive. But they don't know when to quit. When every other species would surrender or retreat, humans keep fighting. It's not courage. It's conditioning. Earth conditioned them to keep going because stopping means death. That mindset makes them extraordinary warriors." The broadcast ended, but its impact rippled through the galaxy. Military organizations scrambled to recruit human soldiers. The Coalition formally reclassified Earth as a Class 12 Deathworld. the highest danger rating ever assigned to a planet with sentient life. Jiwoo sat in her room, watching the news reports with Yuna and Minji. They laughed at some of the more dramatic commentary. "They're calling us Deathworld warriors," Yuna said, amused. "Makes us sound scary." "We're not scary," Minji replied. "We're just stubborn." Jiwoo's brother Taehyun called on video link. "Hey, little sister. I saw the news. You're famous now." "I just did what needed to be done," Jiwoo said. "That's what makes you scary to them," Taehyun replied, grinning. "You don't think what you did was special. To you, it was just Tuesday. But the galaxy has never seen anything like humanity before. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we refuse to break. That's terrifying to species that give up when things get hard." After the call ended, Jiwoo walked to the observation deck. She looked out at the stars, thinking about home. Earth with its mountains and oceans, its dangers and beauty. The world that had forged humanity in constant challenge. Crix found her there. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "When you first arrived, I called you prey. I mocked your species. I was wrong. You were working with incomplete information," Jiwoo said. "Now you know better." "Now the whole galaxy knows better," Crix replied. "You humans, you're not prey. You're survivors. And that might be more dangerous than being a predator." Jiwoo smiled slightly. "We don't try to be dangerous. We just try to survive. Earth taught us that every day is a fight. Every challenge is a test.